The only one that's gonna change your life is not your teacher, it's not your mom, not your parents, it's gonna be you. One of the most important things that you can do for yourself is to create a vision for yourself. Who are you gonna be in 5 years? What does your life look like? You know, who's your partner? Who are your friends? When I grew up in Russia, I was like a street kid, smoking up, playing dice in the school parking lot. You know, somehow immigrated, and people really don't realize how much opportunity they have when they live in Western society. It was harsh. It was like, you're alone, no one's gonna make this life for you. In a way, these challenges turn out to be such huge, massive opportunities. That's why I became an entrepreneur. What you see in regards to our Instagram stories or anything like that, that is our life. We do that to not tell people you should live life like us, but you can live life, you can design your life to how you want it to be. I'm so grateful for my life and how many people who have way more than I have and they're unhappy. The most life-changing thing that I've done in my life is simply practicing gratitude.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... You probably know Alex Ikonn as an influencer, and that's because him and his wife Mimi have millions of followers all around the world. But you probably wouldn't know that he is an immigrant from Russia and moved to Canada with nothing and built a business from scratch. And he did it by always adding value to the customer. And him and Mimi built up an incredible business and have recently sold it. And they're all about creating value as entrepreneurs. And whether it's their 5-minute journal or their productivity planner, they're always trying to think about the customer experience and make it better. And that's what I like about both Alex and Mimi, is they design their futures and take the action steps necessary to get there. And if you're an entrepreneur, you have to listen to some of these nuggets that Alex is going to drop on the show when it comes to good business. And what I love about the Ikonns is they design their lives. They really think to the future and think, what do I want? And what are the steps I have to take in order to get what I want? Whereas most of us just live day to day and we react, they are proactive in their lives. So sit back, enjoy this incredible conversation. I love Alex, I love his attitude. He's got so much to teach us about life and business. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Alex Ikonn, the serial entrepreneur, influencer, and angel investor. In 2010, you founded Luxy Hair with your now wife Mimi and experienced incredible growth with over 250,000 customers in more than 165 countries. The Luxy YouTube channel gained over 3 million subscribers, making it the largest hair channel in the world and turning you and Mimi into well-known lifestyle influencers. You're also the co-founder of Intelligent Change, the company behind the best-selling 5-minute journal and productivity planner, and you're an angel investor in many startups, including the meditation app Calm. Alex, welcome back to London Real.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Dude, it's great having you. It's been 5 years
Yeah.
since you were here. We're both dads.
Oh, wow.
I mean, quite a lot of changes, right?
Massive.
Do you, is it weird thinking back 5 years earlier from now? Do you feel like a different person? Do you feel like a lot has changed, or do you feel like the same guy?
I always feel like the same guy. And I think even to you, the only thing that I realized in 5 years is how much you can do.
Okay.
You know, so I think a lot of times we just forget that you can make a lot of progress in 5 years. Like, look, I had a daughter, I sold a business, I'm here. Like, it's great.
Yeah, I think it was Tony Robbins that says that most people are too hard on themselves in the short term, and then they don't give themselves enough credit in the long term, that you can do so much. And I just had this guy on the show named James Clear who has a book called Atomic Habits.
Of course. Oh, you had him on?
Yeah, yeah.
Is he in town now?
No, it was a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
You're trying to recruit for your podcast.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this 1% change every day really adds up over time. And I think people, you know, forget that. Even sometimes I forget that. I'm always really self-critical, like, how come it's not getting there faster? But when you look back, it's like, you can really build something if you work at it every day, right?
Yeah, slowly, but, you know, turtle wins the race.
Right. Well, look, I want to hear about your adventures the last few years and fatherhood and what you're doing next and all of that stuff. But most people know you and Mimi as these big influencers, right? You know, and
not that big.
I know, but they know you from, you know, videos on YouTube and Instagram and this kind of, you know, nomadic lifestyle that you guys lead. And that's great, and I want to talk about that today, but I would also love to get back to, you know, where you started and kind of where you're from and what all this came, because, you know, every time I see you and Mimi and know you guys, I'm always like, wow, you know, you guys have built something impressive, you've designed your life in this incredible way, but I don't think people realize that you both started like really from the bottom. And it's hard to actually believe that sometimes, but you guys really did start from kind of ground zero, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could maybe talk about even, you know, where you were born and that first, you know, 10 years of your journey and what that was like, because most people would be surprised.
Yeah,
right?
I was actually just making a video today. I'm kind of back getting into YouTube, making videos again. And there was a tag Mimi did. It was like 10 things I've never told anybody before. And I was just recalling some stories. I'm like, wow, I was a pretty badass kid. And what I mean by that, I was like a street kid. And I grew up in Russia. That's where I was born.
Where in Russia were you born?
Orenburg, Russia. So it's a fairly small town, probably 500,000 population, near Kazakhstan, Europe-Asia border.
Wow.
And it was just, you know, I guess a regular Soviet, post-Soviet Union background, and not really having a lot. Of course, the biggest thing that I've had in my life was really having a very loving, unconditional mother. But in regards to resources, it was like we're like lower middle class in Russia, which is really poor by Western standards. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment with my other sister. Me and my sister shared a bedroom. My parents slept on a living room, pull-out couch. You know, and that's, I think a lot of people who grew up in the Soviet Union grew up that way. So it was fairly normal there. And we immigrated to Canada when I was about 10 years old. And, you know, that's when I would say that chapter of my life started. And that's what I remember most vividly. And
Is that move?
Was that move?
What were you doing up until 10? Like just getting in trouble? And,
yeah.
And what your friends from back then, like what happened to them? Are they still there in that city?
I think some of them moved. A lot of them I think probably stayed. And I'm so grateful for my parents for making that move. So, you know, so much of that, you know, people really don't realize how much opportunity they have when they live in Western society, like here in Europe or in North America. It gives you such a big opportunity when you're in these markets. And for us, when I was growing up, yeah, I was like, you know, parents didn't really, I guess, have time for us, or we were just like free-range children. You know, it's not like 7 or 8 year olds now that are always protected and helicopter parents. For us, I remember, you know, running around like scrap yards and junk yards next to my grandma's house, next to like railroad tracks, and you know, even today I was recalling like picking up like cigarette butts when I was like 8, 9 years old, smoking and things like that, like buying beers, like 8, 9 years old. Like this is like real, like some of these street Russian kids. And you know, somehow I end up here, so I'm really grateful for that. And then we immigrated and a whole new life started, but also that wasn't easy because any immigration, especially, I don't even know how parents make these moves when they've never been to a country and they commit and they just sell everything they have. And I always say the story, it's funny being here, like living in London as a Russian in Chelsea, there's a lot of stereotype that you probably come from money or dad is an oligarch. But that's not my background at all. I'm not those kind of Russians, you know. So it's really the type of, you know, parents just selling everything they have, moving.
Why did they move?
The true story is my mom's brother, because my mom had a very troubled childhood with her parents, and it was probably violent and things like that, and she had 2 other siblings, and one of her brothers became a criminal. Like, he was in jail, and alcoholic, probably drug user, all that stuff, and he was really upset at her that her life actually turned out really well. Like, he said, even though, like I said, we're lower middle class, but she had she had a good family. She had 2 kids. She had a family. We had birthday parties. We were living still a great, decent life, and her life was great. Well, for him, it didn't turn out that way, and because a lot of it is because his dad used to beat him and abuse him in other ways, and that's why I think a lot of times when people, when they grow up and they start getting into criminal activity, it's just because they're just abused in some way, and they're just showing it one form or another in an external world. And she just, at one time he came from jail, and I think I remember that's probably like my early childhood traumas. He just came like banging on the door and just like threatening, like, I'm gonna kill everyone and stuff like that. So it was just, and my mom was scared.
Okay. So
she was just like, I need to, and then when he went to jail again, and like, if he gets out, he's like, if I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna he threatened to kill her basically and the family. Wow. So she took it seriously, and she's like, I need to get out of here. And then at that point, she got so lucky. One of her friends came to our city, because he already moved to Canada, to actually try to get his sister to immigrate. And he brought all the paperwork for her. And she's like, I'm staying here. I'm like patriotic. I'm not leaving my country. And my mom just got lucky that she knew this guy. He's like, hey, do you want these forms to immigrate to Canada? And she's like, yeah. It just she was thinking, how do I get out of this place? And just came to the right place, and she convinced my dad, and there we go. And then we're moved.
That changes your whole life.
That changes my whole life, and I'm so grateful. So in a way, these challenges turn out to be such huge, massive opportunities. And I'm so grateful in a way for my uncle who wanted to kill our family. If you look at back, it actually turned out to be for the best, because if everything was comfortable, and maybe if she didn't get threatened, I wouldn't be here. So
taking gratitude to the next level.
Oh, but that's how I think. I'm always, in a way, I'm programmed this way now, to just always look at the glass half full and just looking how amazing life is. And then we just immigrated to Canada, and like I said, it was difficult. And my parents divorced within a year, and there was my mom in a new country with no language, single mother, 2 kids, working night shifts, factory jobs, and there I go again. I get to be independent on my own as a street kid in a way, but now in Canada.
Wow. Did the divorce hit you hard, or did you process it?
I was, the funny thing is, once again, I'm so grateful for the divorce.
I know what you mean. I mean, I'm grateful as well for my parents divorcing, because if they were together, they would have been miserable,
Yeah. So why I'm saying this is that it really allowed me, at that time I was, in a way, I was really grateful to move with my mom and be independent. It's not, my dad was a great guy. He was not violent. He's never either, I don't recall even him raising his voice much or hitting me, nothing. He was just a fairly chilled out dude. However, I was just, in a way, happy to be independent. And because as a child, because my sister was good at school, he would always compare us. He's like, hey, and this is the worst, you have 2 kids now. Yeah. Don't ever compare your kids.
Okay.
It's like the worst thing for them.
Okay.
And also employees. Don't compare your employees.
So cherish what each one brings to the table,
exactly.
But don't play them off of each other.
Don't play them off of each other. So my dad would be like, oh, your sister's so good at school, why you're so bad? And I still, to this day, I still remember that.
Okay. Grateful for that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess that's why maybe I got into entrepreneurship. I'm like, this school thing is going to be for me, so I shouldn't really go hard at that.
Okay, so school didn't work out for you. Are you dyslexic or something, or are you just not like that environment?
I see, the whole thing even now in our society with labels, dyslexic, ADD,
Autism.
If you diagnose, we probably are all in some way dyslexic. Yeah. I'm not knocking, for sure there's people with real, disabilities, However, I think for the majority of us, we, especially in today's society, we can all struggle with attention spans. It's just the way society really now makes us, and it really tries to grab our attention. So for us at school, you know, I wasn't the brightest, you know, of the bunch. I wasn't the A student, and I was just really just focusing to get by. You know, just I would skip a lot of class. My mom didn't know English, so I'd make her. I'm just thinking it's funny. I'll make her like I'll write like a note. You know, you have to write notes if you skipped school.
Right.
You have to like a note from the parents. So I'd make my mom. I'll just write it in English. She didn't know what I wrote. I'll make her even spell out what I dictate the note from the parent. She didn't know what I was saying, and like just sign for it. And she was so nice. She was so naive. She would just sign these notes, and I would skip a lot of class. I just wouldn't go to school.
But you also started working on the streets, right?
Yeah. So same thing. Like because we didn't have a lot of money, and I would see kids going to the movies or doing other things, and I just can see my mom couldn't like give me $20 to go to the movies and hang out with friends. That was not in my cards. So it's like, hey, if you want to do that, you have to make your own money. So here I am, like 11, 12 years old, and my sister knew this guy who on weekends would pick up these minors, basically, so like really young kids, and kind of give them flowers at wholesale, and say, okay, here's 30 bunches of tulips or whatever. Your cost is, let's say, $3-4. You can sell them for $8-10. I'll pick you up. You know, I drop you off at 9. I'll pick you up at 8 p.m. And you're there all day in some suburban parking lot.
And people will buy flowers from a little kid.
Yeah.
More likely.
Exactly.
Okay.
Some strange guys. And he just dropped these kids off, and I was one of them. But in a way, it was kind of like a hustle, right? I still had to, I knew my cost, my wholesale cost, and I knew if I sell these many units, I would make my money. And my mom recalls, I always had money when I was young. So I would take my mom to like a restaurant, and I'll have like a basketball, have clothes and things like that. So it was really great.
And so now you're hanging out with these Canadian kids. Obviously, you know, there's resources in Canada, you know, but you're Russian. You spent 10 years in Russia.
Yeah.
Like, what do you bring culturally from that country? You know, I'm married to a Bulgarian woman, and I always joke to people, there's no complaining allowed in Bulgaria. You know, it's this kind of former Soviet bloc thing where it's kind of hard. There isn't any complaining, and you get on with it, right? Am I stereotyping? Or is there a bit of that?
I don't think it's for everybody. I think a lot of people complain everywhere around the world.
True, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I think too, my wife says the same thing. I don't complain. And it's just like, why? Like,
is that a cultural thing to a certain extent?
I'm not sure. As you're bringing it up, I'm like, is it? Okay. However, I guess to answer your question, what did I bring? What kind of mindset is when you come from not a lot, and you have more opportunity, you're just like, whoa, this is great. You know, it's truly a land of freedom to a certain degree, and you're just able to use the resources more efficiently, and take things be more responsible than just like, hey, whatever, I have a Canadian passport or I have a US passport. So many people take that for granted, that they have the ability to travel or ability to just start a business or ability of freedom. Those are things that are, you know, we don't take for granted when, even now if you live in Russia, right. So many years later.
Right. And so you're there and you notice all these possibilities. Also, you're an immigrant. So this whole immigrant mind is that I'm here, I don't have any of my old friends and family, and I gotta make it, right? Is that also a weird mentality of, I got no choice, I can't go home?
Yeah, I think as a child you really don't think about that.
Okay.
You just think about the present moment and whatever teenager struggles that you have of growing up and maybe not having enough, or sometimes thinking like, how come other parents can provide for their kids and I have parents that are divorced, I don't have resources, I don't have parents that have money, this sucks. However, all these things all contributed to me being here, but you only realize it with time. You know, life makes sense looking backwards, as they say.
Right, as Steve Jobs says.
Yeah, there you go, Steve Jobs.
Right. All right, so you're a hustler. You're going through high school. Now, are you thinking, I'm going to go to college and get a job and do the American, Canadian normal dream? that what you're kind of setting yourself up for?
Same
When
thing.
did that change?
As growing up, I wasn't really planning for anything. I was just on to the next thing. And I wasn't really good at school, at junior high school, or then moving into high school. My sister was really good. And for me, the pivotal moment that happened, like I was this kid who was, you know, smoking up, a little, you know, playing dice in the school parking lot. Like that's, you see, if everybody's looking at this interview or me or know my image, that's what I was talking about in my videos. Like,
just see,
like
we need to have a shadow Instagram account where it's just you like smoking blunts, drinking 40s, shooting dice in the back room.
No, I remember drinking 40s, playing dice.
That was you.
That was me.
And smoking blunts.
Yeah, smoking blunts. No, like I can't like.
And now we see you with pastel colors and in Parisian pictures with your beautiful family. What's going on?
This is the beauty of life.
Okay.
You know, this is the beauty of life, how you can honestly just totally turn it around. Because even I look now, because so many people can judge, especially youth, even me probably, if I see some kid who's doing that now, I'll be like, oh, that kid's, you know, not going to turn out so well.
Right.
However, my own upbringing is a reminder of how you can really turn so much around. And a lot of times, even these troubled kids or street kids can have actually the most potential ever because they're street smart.
Right.
They just think differently and they don't fit into the system.
Right.
And that's why that's why I became an entrepreneur, is I call myself, I'm simply unemployable because it's hard for me to be in a structure. And most people who are able to follow the rules and to play along, you know, it's hard for them to be in entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is totally unknown. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And being a street kid kind of prepares you for that, or being brought up in a family that doesn't have a lot of certainty.
And so how did you morph then from this kind of street vice type of kid, you know, into like university and working at a bank? Because that's kind of how you made that transition.
That's true.
Is that conscious?
It was conscious. And I still remember this moment. It was probably one of the most important moments of my life. Walking back home to where my mom was not going to be. I was probably in junior high school. And my sister was not as present too. She was always around with boys, you know, being a teenage girl and things like that. And knowing that I'm going home, no one's home, I have to make myself a meal. There's not much food. I'm probably gonna make myself a pasta with some, you know, maybe butter mixed in for some protein. That's gonna be my dinner. And in that moment, you feel you want to complain, and you're like, why is life so unfair? And it just hit me over the head that, like, no one cares. You know, it was harsh. It was like, you're alone. No one's gonna make this life for you. And this is a moment when I'm like skipping school, doing all this stuff, being expelled for playing dice, or suspended, not expelled. And that was the next step. And just realize that you can be on this path of what you're doing, and you're the only one to blame. The only one that's going to change your life is not your teacher, is not your mom, not your parents, not your siblings, not the government, not religion or anything. It's going to be you. You're the person that's going to change your life and put yourself on a trajectory of where you want to go. That was the epiphany I had. But that doesn't mean I just changed in that moment. You know, I think we all have these realizations, and we're like, yeah, I'm going to change. That was like, I want to do it. And then you still have to, sometimes you hit a rock bottom, sometimes you have to keep hitting the rock bottom. And for me, it was, you know, then after that, I still kept being around wrong kids, but I was one of those kids too. So I can't say, hey, I blame them. I was one of those.
Right.
Just being in that circle. Kept smoking up, drinking. Then I used to play basketball. I broke my arm playing hoops, and I was like trying to dunk, and I fell off and fell on my elbow. And what happened was I almost became disabled because the way I fell, I pinched one of my nerves, and the doctors didn't see that when they're like, oh, you just broke your humerus. And so I was like walking like this, like literally like this, my arm just hanging, no movement, so I couldn't move it. And they said, oh, it's just nerves, but it'll recover in like a month. Then a month passed by, still like no movement. And they're, okay, you should see a specialist. Thank God there's healthcare, free healthcare in Canada. That's a great thing about that country. And they saw a specialist, and he checked it out. And he's like, I think you have some nerve damage. There's a high probability you're not going to recover. So pick one of the, and I remember this, I was in this room, and they're like, pick one of those like Freddy Krueger kind of hand devices where they're like, it attaches to all your fingers. So kind of your hand will be open, because my hand was just like closed and I couldn't open it. It wouldn't, if I try to close it, it would just close all automatically.
Yeah.
And he's like, pick one of those devices, because you might have to wear that like for the rest of your life. And I was like, no way, like I don't want to like be like that. And I had to get physio, go to physio every day to try to recover. And that was one of my first experiences when I had to kind of work on my mindset. And when somebody, a person of, a doctor tells you, you know what, most likely you have a high probability. He didn't say, hey, you have a probability of you can recover. He just focused on the negative. He was like, you have a high probability that you might have nerve damage and it's not going to move again. And I was like, no way, I'm going to work on that. But during that time, it was a hard time, because I had to overcome the psychology of belief that I will recover. And at the same time, your body, because you can't work out, you can't really do much. Well, at least I thought. I stopped playing basketball, and then I just started partying again. And one night after that other moment, I just was, just drunk high with my broken arm not moving and just being out of shape. And once again, just having one of those out-of-body moments and just realizing, like, you're such a loser. Like, but being honest with yourself. Like you thought you're so responsible and you're going to take responsibility for your life, but here you are, like, just, like, not being good at, not taking school seriously, not taking anything seriously. Like, you're just going to end up like your uncle. And it was just like those kind of things. And I think it was a very important moment, because so many of us, in those moments when we're overweight or underweight, whatever situation, we choose not to be actually real with ourselves and honest that you are a loser. Like, in that moment, you have to face yourself and look yourself in the mirror and be like, you do not look healthy. And if you continue this, like, you're going to probably die early. So, like, if you want to change this, once again, only you can change it if you take responsibility. So for me in that moment, I was like, okay, I got to take this stuff seriously. And it was the same time, like, wow, it was a difficult time. My father then passed away from cancer. Before that, my stepfather passed away from cancer as well, from drinking. So both cases like that. Wow. And so it was a really difficult time. And I made that difficult time in a way, like, I got to really take responsibility. And that's how I was able to finish my last year of high school with good enough grades to get into university. I said, hey, like we were talking about it with your interview as well. I was inspired to be a banker because of Wall Street. Watched the movie Wall Street.
You're watching it too.
Yeah, I watched that movie.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to become a banker because of Wall Street. Because when you don't come from money, you're like, where can I make the quickest money I can? Even I was doing this peddling stuff, but it wasn't really that much money, which can make a lot of difference. And that is really, I went to school and said, before I went to university, I said, I got a job at the bank, just on a retail level. And I thought I was being smart. I'm going to be, I'm going to have 4 or 5 years experience by the time I'm out of university. I'm going to get a great banking job, move on. And I just want to be a lifer at the bank. Like, I just want to be a VP. I started wearing, suits and dress shirts. And I was one of my first friends to stop wearing, jeans that sagged down my ass, and baggy shirts. There's photos of me out there.
I got to get some of those. Again, it's so hard for me to think of you as that baggy pants guy or the lifer in a retail bank guy. My head. Bandanas on your head. Okay. And was there any trouble with the law? Is all in the past?
We talked about it. Yeah, almost the same. So around the same time when I was still a minor, before I was adult around 16, 17, I got arrested for, you know, some kid stole a credit card, and he's like, hey, he's like, you can go and use this credit card and buy something and we'll split it. And I was like, yeah, cool, let's do that. And I remember being, you know, after the store and buying the stuff, and somebody come and grabs you and like you're under arrest. And then having to show up in court and with my mom, and it was like my first time also like wearing a dress shirt. And that was a pivotal moment, you know, being in court in that same time. Like that time was so, like it was, you can see how I could have went, you know, sometimes there's periods in life where you can go one way or another. And I remember so vividly now, being in court, about to face the judge, and looking at other youth like myself there, who I'm no different than them. I'm the same like they are. But seeing some of them who it's not their first time there. And you can see in their eye, they don't care. They already accepted the fact that this is who I am. I'm a criminal, or society turned their back on me, and they already don't jive with society and that kind of mainstream culture. And they're rebellious to the point they're like, I'm not gonna be part of the society. And that was scary for me. And I thought, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here again. And I just want to do things right.
It's interesting you say that. One of our most popular guests is a guy named Dorian Yates. He was six-time Mr. Olympia, and he had a similar problem, got thrown in like a youth jail when he was fairly young. And he tells the story of like one of the other inmates there. The guard was telling him to do something, and he was going to throw him in like solitary if he didn't do it. And the guy said to the guard, I don't give a fuck. I just don't give a fuck. And so basically he had checked out of society, rules, consequences. And Dorian thought to himself, well, I actually do give a fuck. Yeah. And so that kind of scared him straight. And he was like, I don't want to be this delinquent prison lifer like these other guys.
Exactly.
So, wow, sounds like that was a big moment for you.
It's massive. Yeah.
All right, so this is good stuff, man. So, and again, like, you know, like you said, a lot of us, when we feel a painful moment in our life, right, the quickest thing to do is to mask it, right, or get away from it. Let's go check out Netflix, check out Instagram, go eat something, go buy something, go smoke something. But if you actually take a moment and be with the pain, that's what you did, right? You're like, okay, I suck, I'm a loser, and like, let me really meditate on that for a bit, because that's the only way you're gonna change, right? Yeah,
I think it's very important. I had another, of course, you know, another one of those moments in the future before we started our business. The turning point for me that really changed a lot, and this was the reason why, you know, we do what we do now in regards to being very open and sharing and helping share our experience, even as I'm here with you or through our own channels, is because when all that was going, magically, my wife and my mom's manager, she worked at this retail store. His name, I believe, was Joseph. I love to, if Joseph ever hears this, I'd love to meet him again. And he was a great manager to her, and he gave her Personal Power 2 tapes by Tony Robbins. Like actual tapes, like a set of 30. I remember that, and he gave it, he had 30 tapes, and he gave it to her. And my mom brought her home one day, and we're going through this rough time. And I'm like, what are these? She's like, oh, my manager gave them. He says we should listen to it. And that's when I started listening to Tony Robbins.
Wow.
And, you know, whatever, you know, people think of him, and, you know, obviously he's big, there's a lot of drama maybe surrounding him. However, I'm so grateful, you know, for him to share that knowledge of that you can, and sharing his own story, how he overcame his own struggles, especially in those tapes, and sharing kind of the guidelines of what you need to do to get out of your state, you know, and how do you create a life for yourself. I think it's so great, even what we do or what you do now, sometimes we take it for granted. However, the reason I create content is I always think of that 17, 18-year-old Alex, and hey, I can change his life. Because the way, you know, Tony Robbins changed my life, to really start reframing my mindset to think of like what I'm grateful for. Even though I had nothing, you know, you can say, oh, didn't have, my life was crap and I had nothing to be grateful for. But in reality, there were so many things. And once I shifted that mindset to be able to think of the things that I have instead of don't have, and the opportunity that I have, because even think about it, being 18 years old, any billionaire will trade, who's like 90, would trade places with an 18-year-old who's healthy and young but broke in a day, right? Because it's just, you got that whole life and youth and energy. It's amazing. Yeah. So, and those are the things that especially young people take for granted because we're so insecure when we're at teenagers or early 20s. But in reality, we're one of the wealthiest people in the world when we're that. So Tony Robbins really helped me in that time to really shift and create a new life for myself.
Isn't that crazy how an audio tape quite literally changed your life and put you on a new trajectory? And say 20, 30 years earlier, you would have never been able to get that piece of audio. And even 100 years earlier, even less so. And then nowadays, we've got YouTube.
It's bootleg. You can just listen on YouTube for free.
Right. But now we've got videos and
podcasts.
There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around the world that are putting out this information. But back then, Tony was one of the few games in town that would give you your own personal power, right?
Yeah.
It's just wild that.
That's why you have no reasons to complain right now.
Right.
We live in an incredible world.
So you start listening to personal power. When did you meet Mimi, and when did you guys decide to go ahead and, well, get together and become entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it was, so I got a job at the bank, and then I used to work at this other branch. It was on retail level, so not in like corporate or anything like that. And I quickly got promoted to be like an account manager, because you start like as a teller, as you just at the counter, and then I'm like, hey, because as a teller you have to stand all day, and I'm like, I just want to sit down. So I'm like, that was really my reasoning to get promoted. So I got promoted fairly quickly to be an account manager, which just means like, you know, you open people's accounts, get them credit cards, mortgages, all that stuff, and you also get to see in people's like everyday people finances, which is really interesting. I love that, and interacting with people. So I get moved to this branch in Richmond Hill, which is a suburb of Toronto. And before I moved to that branch, my assistant manager is like, Alex, there's this girl Mimi there. She's a hottie. I don't know why he said that, but he's like, kind of watch out, like, you're so lucky you're going there. I'm like, sweet. I'm like, and my first day I remember signing my contract, and she comes in, and yeah, so the rest is history.
What was she like then?
She's the same. That's the great thing. I think Mimi just what she does now, she just does it at a bigger scale. Like it's more magnified. What I mean by that is, you know, customers loved her. Like, and she truly loves serving people, and she misses that. Like even to be able to ability to interact with people on a daily basis, and because there she, you know, all day as a teller, that's what she did when I moved to the bank, and then she was just a branch ambassador doing the same thing, meaning people would just come to her all day, and they'll line up and they'll just wait to be served, kind of by Mimi, and she had such a warm personality as she does now, and people would wait like, hey, I want to see Mimi, I want to have that interaction with Mimi. Because she was just, you know, she was very, like, she's as she is now, like loving and caring, and always want to help other people. And, you know, even if it's like, you know, if someone doesn't have money, she'll give them something for free and things like that. She always cares for people.
And what'd she think of you?
I think, as she says, her first impression was like, oh, this Russian guy is here, because she also has that background. And
I mean, just she know what she's Azerbaijani, right?
She's from Azerbaijan, yeah.
So she knows Russians.
So she knows
from that area of the world.
Yeah. So she never thought she would end up with a Russian guy. However, most people, when they find out that I'm Russian, they don't even think that I'm Russian, because I just don't. They think I'm Swedish, but I don't get the Russian thing a lot.
No.
And I guess Russian guys have some sort of stereotype, and she kind of casted it on me at the beginning. But as we got to know each other, we just, you know, became really good friends. And I was dating somebody else long distance. She was in a long distance relationship, so we're just kind of coworkers. But I thought she was cute. She probably thought I was cute, you know. And a lot of people at the branch were like, "Oh, you guys should hook up." And a lot of people hinted that you guys, you know, have a connection.
And then you did.
Then we did, but you know, I think like so many young males who are inexperienced in many ways and also very insecure, I did not think that I had a chance, because she's extremely good looking. You know, she's like a dream girl, and she was a year older than me. And when you're early 20s, when a girl is a year older, you think like she's probably dating like older guys who have money and stability and jobs. She's not gonna like date a younger up and coming guy. And one day she was actually gonna move back to Azerbaijan, and she said she would give me actually hints before, kind of ask me out, but I never listened to it. And like, hey, yeah, we should go camping sometimes. You go camping, you invite me next time. But I never did. But this time she said, hey, I'm gonna move away in a few months. I really wanna go ice skating. If you can get me a pair of ice skates, we can go ice skating together. Obviously she can go to a skating rink and rent skates and just go. But I was like, I think she's asking me out. I'm like, I gotta get this, make this happen. And you know, I called my buddy up and I said, hey, what's your girlfriend's size for skates? And I think he gave either his girlfriend or his sister skates, and I picked them up and we went on a date, and that's it. The rest was history. I didn't even know how to skate.
Wow. I think, you know, I spoke to Mimi, I think 4 years ago after you came in, and
Yeah.
she's coming here soon again. But I think she said that Alex sold me on a vision of the future. Like when I asked her why she went out with you, and of course you are extremely good looking, so that's, you know, it's
Now,
good reasons, now at least. But she said that Alex sold me on this vision of the future, and I think maybe I was asking her about relationships,
Yeah.
like how do people find other people attractive, and she said, you know, that he had this vision of the future of what you wanted to do or become, even at that age, and that's what she was attracted to. Is that right?
Yeah, it was
you
my
think?
inner Tony Robbins channeling. What happened was when we started dating, she didn't take it seriously, and like I said, I didn't think I had a chance. And then we just went on this date. Then I took her out for dinner afterwards, and I'm like, we have a connection. I think that there's a possibility here. And we kind of started dating as we're coworkers, and everything was going really well. However, a lot of times, maybe women do this on an evolutionary level. She dumped me like 3-4 times. So she'd be like, we'd be going out, everything's fine. I didn't do anything wrong. And she'd be like, I don't think it's gonna work. I'm leaving and things like that. And she just, and I would kind of keep back into it. And one of her last times, so it was like after 3 times she already turned me down. She said, no, I just don't want to see you anymore. And I kind of convinced her, like, hey, let's just go out, talk as friends. It's cool that you don't want to see me. And she's like, okay, fine. And we went out together. I took her out just for a drink, like a bubble tea, nothing alcoholic.
The new Alex.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I was just telling her, like, I really see us. I really see a future together. And she's like, because she said at that moment, she's like, why do you keep trying? Because I was so persistent, because a lot of times women do this on purpose. They just reject a guy and the guy's like, and he just drops off. But I was really persistent. And she's like, why are you so persistent? Like, why do you keep doing this? And I was not doing it in a stalkish way. It was a very nice way. And I said, I can see us together. I can see us being a great team and just having life together. That's what I see. And I just looked her in her eye and I really believed it. And that's what she told you, that I was able to kind of share my vision with her and enable to her kind of buy into that vision as well. And I think this is what we do as well. When we start companies and in leadership, we have to do that. We firstly have to believe ourselves before we can help or make other people believe in anything as well.
Right. But ultimately, it is about selling a vision if you want to be an entrepreneur or a leader. And most people don't do it in relationships, but it's just as important, right? You really have to articulate it and believe it and sell it, right?
Oh, massive. Yeah. You have to be sure in your vision. Yeah.
All right, so you guys get together, but it's not all roses, because within a year or so, you're still living at your mom's house with Mimi. You've got no business in sight. I think you guys used to do these gratitude walks, and like her dad would call and be like, "What do you guys have to be grateful for? You're broke."
Yeah.
You know, is this about right where you were, and then what happened to change it?